Hi everyone, Johnny here. So today I'm looking at the Christian Lee versus Yoon rematch from 1/160. And originally when I was watching this fight, obviously a fantastic performance by Christian Lee. What I wanted to originally study was his use of pressure and his shot selection, which led to the outcome that he was chasing. But Christian actually made an interesting comment in his post-fight interview.
The big mistake I made in previous fights is when I get into this circle, I just want to fight. And so I calmed it down a little bit. We laid out a game plan, I stuck to it, and I just tried my best to pick my shots, take what was there, not rush anything, and the finish happened on its own.
So what it actually made me want to do is go back and re-watch the original fight. From what I remembered, it was a very close fight. I found it very interesting because the style that he approached that fight versus what he approached in this fight were two completely different approaches.
So let's start this study with a comparison of how the first fight and the second fight started. I've put the first fight in black and white on the left and the rematch in colour on the right. Note how Christian is already more focused on applying pressure, and although Oak starts first because Lee has entered his range, Christian does not hesitate in continuing to apply pressure on Yoon. The second notable adjustment was the absence of Christian's takedowns in the rematch. In the first fight, if Yoon was against the cage, Christian would look to enter, mixing his striking with his cage wrestling to try and secure the takedown. Throughout the 5-round match, this occurred 6 times, with Yoon showing competent counter-wrestling as the fight went back to standing territory each time. Fighting in this way definitely wears on the gas tank, and in this first fight, Lee would occasionally have to take his foot off the pedal to regather his energy, allowing Yoon some opportunities to come forward. Instead of chasing takedowns in the rematch, Christian instead opted to pick his shots and maintain pressure, continuously applying it until it overwhelmed Yoon. Let's pause for a second here, because there are 2 points that I want to make about pressure. The first is that pressure on its own is a double-edged sword, as coming forward without utilising smart shot selection will lead to your opponent countering to catch you as you come in. This sequence is an example from the first fight, where initially Yoon manages to catch Christian Lee, however in chasing the opportunity to finish, also gets countered when applying pressure. The second is that with a solid defensive base, pressure can be amplified, as the opponent's counter-strikes fail to break through to disrupt the forward pressure. You can almost think of it like a solid wall closing in on you, threatening to squash you should you fail to find a way to push back or get out of its way. There's a great analogy that I first heard Ryan Hall use in relation to guard passing in Jiu-Jitsu, that if you think about passing someone's guard like water pressure building up against the structure, for the water to get out, it needs to find the weaknesses in the structure and apply pressure over time. This would allow the guard to be passed either through the gradual loss of pressure as the water seeps through any holes in the structure, or alternatively, a complete collapse of the structure as the pressure overwhelms any defensive weaknesses. This is a great analogy that can be applied broadly across combat, in that if you cannot contain your opponent's pressure, over time it will potentially expose your weaknesses, leading to forced errors and low percentage outcomes. In this example, Lee throws the check hook, encouraging Oak to move to his right. Continuing to apply pressure, Oak makes the forced error of trying to engage to create space after Christian has rhythm stepped and set his feet. As such, Lee lands a stiff jab and exits to his left, once again encouraging Oak to move to his right. Pressuring forward again, Lee takes advantage of the threats from the lead side by throwing a solid leg kick from the right side. Through mixing these offensive options up, Christian managed to take control of the cage as Yoon realised that he would need to come forward to create space to land his own strikes. In this example, Oak rushes forward from the 50-50, trying to push back against the pressure Lee had been applying to him. Note how Lee's counter hook becomes physical control on the back of Oak's head, introducing the threat of the snapdown, but also serving as a range fighter for the rear uppercut as Yoon retreats. There are 2 ways to counter pressure. The first method would be like how a matador fights with a bull. Check out my Bobby Green vs Rafael Fiziev film study for a great example of this. The second way to counter pressure is through meeting it head on to see whose pressure will be greater, almost like 2 rams fighting for superiority. This is where solid defense and shot selection come into play. In the first fight, Christian would concede ground when Yoon opted to come forward. Here is one such example where Oak rushes forward, causing Christian to retreat, and Oak lands a nice body kick on the exit. In comparison, the rematch often saw Christian meeting Oak's offense with his own, allowing him to continue pressuring forward. In this 10-second sequence, there are 4 exchanges within as Oak looks to back Christian up. However, each time Christian goes right back to pressing the action, conceding minimal space and meeting the pressure head on. Note how Christian was using his lead hook to try and counter the forward pressure of Oak's 1-2, disrupting Oak's cross and allowing his lead arm to form an extra defensive layer for Oak to contend with. As a final study point, let's look at composure and its role in amplifying pressure. Composure serves 2 key purposes. 1. It builds tension and anticipation, raising the stakes in the subsequent exchanges, and 2. It helps to manage pacing and energy expenditure. By being selective about what strikes are being thrown and where, in the moments where there are no strikes being thrown, the tension is building. This fight had great examples of this and much more that I didn't cover, so if you haven't already watched it, please don't forget to check it out, and as always, if you've enjoyed this video and want to join me as I continue to work on my film study skills, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.